You know that feeling when you finally lock the door to your vacation rental? You drop your bags, turn up the heat, and for a split second, you feel untouchable. Like the rest of the world, and all its problems are miles away. That's what we felt when we pulled into that driveway in McCall, Idaho. We hadn't taken a family trip in 5 years. We needed this. But here's the thing about remote rentals in the winter. Once the blizzard hits and the roads vanish under 6 feet of snow, that cozy cabin doesn't feel like a sanctuary anymore. It feels like a cage. And when you realize that the footsteps you're hearing on the floorboards above you aren't coming from your kids, you realize you aren't the only ones trapped inside. These are 3 true stories of winter rentals that turned into living nightmares. And trust me, after this, you'll never look at a secluded cabin the same way again. It was December 2024. My wife Sarah, our 2 young kids, and I had rented this massive A-frame cabin. It was beautiful, cedar wood, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a loft area that remained empty because we all stayed on the main floor to stay warm. By the second night, the storm of the decade hit. The power flickered out around 8 p.m. No big deal, right? We had plenty of wood for the stove and flashlights. We tucked the kids into their sleeping bags in front of the fire and eventually fell asleep ourselves. I woke up at 3:14 a.m. The house was dead silent, except for the wind slamming against the exterior. And then I heard it. Creak, creak, creak. Slow, deliberate footsteps directly above my head. In the master loft, the room that was supposed to be empty. I froze. I looked at Sarah. She was fast asleep. I thought maybe it was just the house settling from the cold. Wood groans in the winter, I told myself. But then came the sound of something being dragged. A heavy, wet thud followed by a scraping noise. I grabbed my heavy-duty maglite and tiptoed toward the spiral staircase. Every step I took felt like I was walking toward my own funeral. When I reached the top, I swung the light around. Empty. Just dust motes and shadows. But then I saw it. In the center of the room, there was a patch of melted snow on the hardwood. Just a small puddle, right beneath an attic hatch I hadn't noticed before. I looked up. The hatch was slightly ajar. A single muddy finger mark was smeared on the white trim. Someone was up there, right now, watching me through the crack. I didn't scream. I didn't want them to know I knew. I backed down the stairs, woke Sarah up with a hand over her mouth, and whispered, "We're leaving. Now." We didn't even grab our suitcases. I threw the kids into the SUV while they were still half asleep. The snow was so thick I couldn't see the hood of my car, but I floored it. We spent the night in a gas station parking lot 10 miles away. When the sheriff went back the next day, they found the attic hatch open. Inside, they found a nest. Blankets stolen from our linen closet, half-eaten food from our fridge, and a small pile of Polaroid photos. They were photos of us, sleeping in front of the fireplace from the night before. The guy had been living in the crawl space above us the whole time. He had come down while we were asleep to take pictures. He was never caught. 3 college friends and I rented a cabin in the Catskills for a ski weekend. It was one of those off-the-grid places. No Wi-Fi, no cell service. The owner told us there was a caretaker who lived in a shack about a mile down the trail, so we shouldn't worry if we saw someone nearby. On the first morning, we found a vintage red wooden sled sitting on our porch. We thought it was a nice gesture from the owner. We used it all day. But that night, we heard a scratching sound at the front door, like a dog wanting to be let in. My friend Mark opened the door. No dog, just that red sled sitting there again, but this time there was something on it. A small dead rabbit, neatly gutted. We freaked out, thinking it was a sick prank by a local. The next morning, the sled was gone. But when we looked out the window, we saw it about 50 yards away, at the edge of the woods, and sitting on the sled was a man. He was wearing a heavy camouflage coat and a hunting mask. He wasn't moving. He was just staring at the cabin. For 6 hours, he didn't move an inch. Not even when we yelled at him. We didn't wait for a third gift. We packed up and hiked through the knee-deep snow to our car. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. The man was standing in the middle of the road, pulling that red sled behind him, slowly following our tire tracks. We found out later the caretaker had died 3 years ago. Nobody knew who that man was. This one is quick, but it still haunts me. I was solo traveling in Vail. I stayed in a basement apartment of a large chalet. Because it was a basement, the windows were at ground level, peeking out just above the snow line. One night, I was watching a movie when I felt a presence. You know that prickle on the back of your neck? I turned toward the window. Because it was pitch black outside and bright inside, the glass acted like a mirror. I saw my own reflection, but behind my reflection, pressed against the outside of the glass, was a pair of bare, frostbitten hands. Someone was lying flat in the snow, face down, just watching my feet move across the room. They had been there for hours. The police found a body-shaped depression in the snow outside every single window of the house. They were tracking me from room to room. The scariest thing about a winter rental isn't the cold. It's the isolation. It's knowing that if someone decides to step inside, help is a snowplow and 4 hours away. Next time you're tucked into a cozy cabin, do yourself a favor. Check the attic, check the crawl space, and for God's sake, look out the window. If you've ever had a vacation rental nightmare, tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Stay warm, stay safe, and good night.